Good morning, everyone. I am going to start off with a simple poll to see if you can hear me. So if you can hear me, please respond yes. And I'll also let you know that today's session, I'm going to record it, but I'm anticipating that it may take a really long time to get any sort of downloads. I'm hoping that everything will be okay. So fingers crossed, it should be okay. But I do want you to try to treat this as much as possible as just regular sessions. You know, we start off at 8 a.m. and they end at 9:45 a.m. So I don't want to infringe on anyone else's class schedule time. So I'm trying to stick to, as much as possible, the regular scheduled class time. Not as much as possible, just I'm sticking to the regularly scheduled class time. So if you've missed a face-to-face class, then you will have missed that content as well. But this is extraordinary circumstances, so I'll do my best to make the content available. The problem or the caveat is that it may take a really long time for download, or I can't guarantee that the download will be able to come up. Okay, that's a system issue, and so I'm just hoping that it'll be okay. All right, so I'm just going to do a couple of things. I'm going to troubleshoot. There's a couple of people who are not able to hear me, so I'm going to get myself back onto mute and just try to get those people back on track. If you can hear me, please respond, because I see that there's 5 people who haven't responded yet. So I'm going to mute myself again, and I'll just pop over to the chat and try to get these couple people back on track. Okay. Okay, so so I took myself off of mic, obviously, but there still are a few people who are unable to hear me. All right. Well, we won't. The best thing to do is use Firefox, the latest version of Firefox, and use that as your browser. And you must allow the browser to get access to your mic. Okay, so if it doesn't have access to your mic, then you won't be able to hear me. So even though I don't give permissions or I don't set it up with the permissions that you can use your mic, you still need to allow the browser to access your mic. So just make sure that that part is set up properly. I'm going to ask one more polling question. Um, So it's still, can you hear me clear, or can you hear me, but it's, can you hear me clearly without any delay? Or do you think that there's, okay, so it sounds like it's working out pretty good. Okay, so I see that there's still maybe someone that is unable to hear me. So we'll try to get that person to identify themselves with me. Could be through the chat with everyone or even through the private chat. So I suspect we're going to be, doing this for today, but sessions going forward, it would be pretty smooth. So once everyone knows how to set things up, then it should be okay. All right. So I'll end that poll. It does seem that someone is having difficulty. If it's one of your peers and they're reaching out to you, saying that they can't get on or they can't hear me, then please do let them know that they should be using the latest version of Firefox and and to allow Firefox to get access to their browser or to their mic rather, the mic on their device. Okay, so I'll get. Okay, so using latest version of Firefox and still can't hear you. The other thing is to maybe try Chrome. Or we can check the settings. Check settings. Okay. All right. So I think for the most of you, you can hear me, and we'll go on. This session is being recorded, so hopefully the sound will come out there as well. And for anyone who's having difficulty, we're going to have to catch up. Okay. So today, what we're doing is we're going to make sure that everyone's on board. And for the few that are not, we're going to have to sort something out. We're going to look at the revised addendum. We're also going to make sure that that everyone's trying that trial question and found in the course documents. And also we're going to take a look at reviewing assignment number 3 solutions and test number 2, which would be coming up Monday next week at this time, and also going over, if we have time, example 5.3. Okay. So if there's anyone else that has experienced a similar issue before with just hearing notification sounds and not being able to hear my voice, but they've sorted out a solution. If you can kindly respond to the student who's having difficulty, and just for us to organize chats, because I can see that there's probably the opportunity for the chats to really sort of come in really, really fast. I would recommend that you use the @ symbol and then the person's name so that you're you're organizing the chat and you're directing your response to that person. So I'll just mute myself for a second. I'm going to switch screens and just attend to this one student who can't hear me for a second. Okay. Okay, so and I should have said, or I should have opened up with, I hope everyone is healthy and safe. And yeah, this is certainly a very different feel as opposed to being face to face. But I'm really glad that the technology is available, that we can continue and wrap up the semester, um, without without too much damage, I suppose. I intend to try to do as much as possible, as normal as possible, through this technology, and hold sessions regularly during scheduled classes, and they will all be synchronous sessions, so there's nothing that's pre-recorded and left for you to review on your own. So I'll always have these synchronous sessions. I'll attempt to record them, but hopefully there's no issues with downloads and stuff like that. So I do encourage you to attend your sessions regularly, just as you would in class. And let's go over the addendum, the revised addendum. So some of the evaluations that we've covered, we did test 1, which is 22.5%, assignment number 1, 2, and 3, and they're each worth 6.25%, and that's for a total of 18.75%. So in total, we've covered quite a lot already in this course. There is one assignment left, and one test, and the final assessment. So hopefully you've been keeping on track with all of the announcements from the president of the college, and he's announced that there is no final formal exam week. So what happens with that, what would have been exam week, is now just regular class time. So we're going to continue with the scheduled class time during that exam week period. So there's the exam week is gone. It's just regular class time. So I'll hold sessions, or I'll during that time I'll have a final assessment, and the idea is to have a final assessment that somewhat resembles a final exam. So I'll just pull questions from a little bit of everything, but it won't be as lengthy, I suppose, as a final exam. So final exam is usually 2 hours, but I'm also taking into account in all this the technology use and the sort of different kind of format. Okay, so what we have is so for this week, we are still taking a look at short columns. Now, I might push this topic number 5, like looking at that last question in the notes, to tomorrow's class. We'll see how the time goes, because today is really about troubleshooting some technology issues, and then we're going to get into footings, or begin footings probably either at the end of the next session or on the following week. March 30th, so that's the Monday, test number 2 is scheduled, and I will be doing a test online. So all assignments, all evaluations, there's no need for you to go to the college whatsoever. Everything is going to be done online. So to answer the question that came up about the final exam, we have a makeup exam for the final. So it's not a makeup exam, it's a final assessment. So instead of having a final exam that's 2 hours long in an exam week, that exam week is basically thrown out in terms of a final exam, but instead it's replaced with regular scheduled class time. So, on that week, we're going to have a final assessment. Okay, so just going through the addendum here, we will have an assignment number 4, and that's going to be held during class time. Okay, so just like you would in face-to-face, but now we're doing it online. And the format of this, I'm still playing around with a little bit. you're still going to be allowed to obviously connect with your peers and talk to your peers about the assignment and sort of collaborate. But I am intending for it to be a timed assessment. So all of these assessments are intended to be timed and basically a single submission. So it's not multiple attempts. It's a single submission that you're doing. Are there any questions? Oh, sorry. Let me go to that last week of classes. Or I'll review the dates. Okay, so March 30th is the test number 2. April 10th is assignment number 4, in-class assignment number 4. And April 13th is the final assessment. And then anything else that remains in the course that has to be covered is going to happen, just to wrap up, would be April 17th. Okay, so I have the feeling that we're probably going to get through most of the footings, if not all of it. But we're in a really good position in the course to achieve, 95% of the learning outcomes, if not more. Okay, so we're in a good position in terms of content, and so we were right on schedule anyway, if not just a little bit ahead too. So, are there any particular questions about the schedule or the timing of everything? If you do have questions, I'd like for you to ask them in the chat session. If you don't feel comfortable asking it in the chat session to everybody, then there is a way to ask me privately. So you would just go over to the attendees list and you would click on the attendee controls and select my name and chat with me privately. Okay, so you can do that, or you could ask everyone. If you do have accommodations, please reach out to me because I want to ensure you that we'll sort something out. Okay, so if you have accommodations, I'd ask that you email me right away so that we can have a discussion about particular situations. Okay, so some important notes about the format of the online assessments. So the test 2 and final assessment, these will begin at the start of your scheduled class time, and they will be online. I'll be online rather. If you have any questions, you can ask me. So what I'll do is I'll create a Blackboard Collaborate. I have a Blackboard Collaborate session already ready to go, and you're going to have your Blackboard test that you'll go into and you'll be working on. If you needed to reach out to me, you can go in, pop into the Blackboard Collaborate session and ask me any questions that you have. You will require the use of the Concrete Design Handbook, so I hope that you have that with you. And obviously it's going to be open book, and they will be timed and they will be single attempt. Okay. Assignment number 4, the intent there is hang on a second, let me just go to this question. So our section is NAA, so the schedule will be a bit different. Let's take a look. What did I put NBB up here. I'm sorry, guys. My apologies. Yes, this is incorrect because, all right, let me see. I'm going to stop sharing this and I'm going to bring up schedule NAA. Thanks for that. That schedule is not correct. So let me stop sharing that. That's confusing. And let me see if I can get up your schedule. So just give me a minute to upload. Okay. So while that's uploading, there it is. Sorry about that and for any confusion. Yeah, and you are not NBB. I'm going to remove that file. Sorry about that. Okay. Let's get the right ones up there. Ah, that's better. All right. So thanks for recognizing that. So here's the your section timeline. So the Monday sessions are the days of your test and final assessment. And I'm just going to take a look at this one here. If there's any revision to this, I will let you know, or any clarifications, because my intent was to have this this assignment also on the Monday. Okay, so but if there's going to be a change, I'll let you know. And the other thing also is that things are changing so rapidly with this situation that you know, there may be a need for another update in the addendum. So we're just planning on this and what you see here, and hopefully go forward with this. So I'll just go back to the questions for a minute. Will summer classes be online as well? Well, I don't think there's been any sort of official notice from the college, so I can't answer that for sure. Okay, so yes, our meeting dates are Mondays and Tuesdays, so, not Mondays and Fridays. Okay. All right, are there any other questions about the timeline or the addendum? So we'll go forward with what you see here. Okay, so test number 2 is next Monday, starting at 8 a.m. There's a way that I can time it in Blackboard so that it starts at a specific time and it ends at a specific time. So that's test 2 on Monday, next Monday. And what it's going to cover is topics number 4 entirely. So that's basically on slabs. And topic topic 3, the T-beam. So if you look at assignment number 3, so it's that kind of stuff. So it's the if you look at assignment 3, all of topic 4, which is all on slabs, topic number 3 for T-beams, and topic number 5 for columns. But for topic number 5, it's only up to analysis. So there's no design for topic number 5. So I will send that out as an announcement on Blackboard so that you can have a better idea of what it is that you should be focusing your studies on. Okay. All right, I'm just going to switch my screen for a second. I'm going to show you something that I've posted in Blackboard. And give me a minute here. Okay, so what you should be seeing right now, let's stop sharing that and we'll share the screen. All right, so it took just a minute or so to upload there. So right now you should be seeing the screen, my screen. So I've made my screen shared with you, and what I'm looking at is the course And this is in student preview, so this is something that you would see. So you'd come in and you'd land on the announcement pages or page, and I hope that you've been keeping up to date with some of the announcements. I know you're probably overwhelmed with all your classes and all the announcements that I'm making. If you have any troubleshooting issues, and please follow these instructions that I gave here. On the title of the announcement is Online Classes on Blackboard, Collaborate, Some Tips and Troubleshooting. So please follow that along. If it's working today for you, fantastic. But if you feel that you're having difficulties in the future, please try those steps and some of those tips. If you look into course documents, and I think I'm not going to create any new folders. It'll be like a one-stop shop for you. It just go into course documents for anything that is coming up in this course, including course documents, tests, and assignment stuff. All of that will be listed in the course documents. So I switched over to course documents now, and I've created a trial question that I would like for everybody to try. I know a lot of you have gone in and done that already, but I need to know that you can upload files and do a file submission for a test question. Okay, so you don't have to write. All you have to do is take a picture of something like a document and send it to me. So there are some excellent file converters out there from JPEG to PDF. There's some excellent free apps. So I use what's called Cam Scanner, and it's a free app. I mean, you can pay extra for extra stuff, but you don't need anything fancy. It should all be free. Or there are other things that other people use. If you use a particular app that you would like to share, you would like to your peers to know of, please type that into the chat, because some people may not be aware that there are these apps that can take a picture of something, turn it into a PDF, and then you can upload a file. So I would like everyone to try uploading a file through this. Let me see if I can do it myself. So you'll come up with a message that says some instructions about the test. I want you to try this, not because the timing of the test will be reflective of your test, but just so that you have an idea of what you would what you would see if it's a long answer that you have to submit. So this is an example of a question that you might see me create for you. So something similar to this. And this requires a file submission. So you'll see that it asks you to attach a file. So right at the bottom here, it's asking you to attach a file. And so you would go to my browser and you would attach a file and submit. Okay, the best file format is PDF. So I'd like for everyone to try to do that. I want to get that all sorted out this week because I don't want to have any issues on Monday. So I'd like everyone to try it at least once. And I will respond to you to tell you that I can see it. So as you know, in this course, some of the questions are quite lengthy, and we can't just rely on multiple choice in this course. So I take a question that may be worth 5 or 10 marks, and I allocate part marks. And that's important for me. It's important for you to be able to get credit for the process that is correct. So this is the way we can do it. So I just want to make sure that everyone is able to do this and sort out any technical issues in advance of Monday, because come Monday, that's when you're going to have your test. Okay, so if you've tried it already, the last time I looked at all this stuff was on Saturday, and I put some feedback to you all, and I can definitely give you feedback through the system. If you've tried it after that, then I haven't had a chance to see it yet. So I promise to go through it. I'll go through every single one who's tried to submit something, and I'll give you a comment. Perfect if it's no problem. If there's an issue with opening up your file, I will let you know. Okay, so please check that that feedback. Okay, so stop sharing that. or before I stop sharing that, I'm going to see if there's any questions related to this. So I'll mute myself for a second. I'll review some of the chat, and I'll be back in with my voice activated in a minute. Okay, so just reviewing some of the questions. So thank you for sharing some of the apps that are out there, the names of the apps. That's helpful. There are some things that are really quick at you taking a picture and converting it to PDF. The only hello. Hi. Just type in if you can hear me, because I had this intense feedback. Okay, perfect. Sorry, there was this intense feedback with that almost made my my ears pop. Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, I promise the next session will be smoother and we'll get into some content. So going back, but these are very important questions. So let me go back. So yes, you can submit a JPEG. The issue with a JPEG is if you, you know, depending on how much space you need to write, because sometimes you might, you know, go over a page, you may want to write on another page. Just make sure that if you're submitting a JPEG, that your file, that one file that you submit, because you can't submit multiple files for the question. So if the question, for example, this question is saying question 1, attach a file, it's not going to allow you to attach multiple files. It's going to ask for one file and that's it. Then you submit. Make sure you hit the save and submit button that you see on the bottom right when it's done. So if you're submitting a JPEG, so if you're just going to take a picture and you want to upload it, you can do that. I've had success seeing JPEGs, so it's not a problem for me to open it. But you want to just make sure that you're capturing all of your work on one picture. So just be aware of that if you're doing JPEG. If you're doing PDF, or if you're going from a picture to PDF, there are apps out there that will string those files, those images into a single PDF. If you're having, you know, a lot of difficulty and it's really not working out for you, then as a very last resort is you would email me the file. Okay, but I do prefer everything to be in the one test, like the house that holds all the test questions and all the test answers, so that when I'm marking it, I could be consistent in my marking, and I can also take a look at your file all at once. Okay, but as a very, very, very last resort, you could do that. Okay, but certainly my preference is for you to upload the file into the test, I guess, where you have the test in Blackboard. So, so I hope that answers some of the questions that have come up. So photo of the work is fine. Just make sure it captures all of your work, because if I can't see it, I can't mark it. Each long question will require an individual submission. Okay, so I will have, it'll be question and then you submit, question and submit, question and submit. Okay. And I'll do this for anything that is, that requires, so any sort of short answer or something that is a longer answer, this is what I'm going to be asking you to do. Okay, so it just allows me to apply those part marks for proper process, etc. And it'll be a mix. So you can think about the format of the test that I usually have, right? So there's a little bit of multiple choice, maybe true and false, maybe a couple of shorter questions that are shorter calculations, and then some that are longer, questions. The longer questions will definitely need file submission. The shorter questions, it might need a file submission, or it might be just a box that you type in a description, right? So if I'm asking you to describe something or explain some part of theory, that might be something that you can just type in rather than show, if it's not a mathematical based thing. But if it's something mathematical where you have to show equations and application of the standard, etc., then you would have that file submission process. So Matthew, I think to answer your question, is there any way you can make it so that you can upload multiple files? I can search around, but I would say no. So for one question, it's one file. But if you can arrange your work so that you can take a picture of all of it, then I'm hoping that I can then zoom into it. If you're worried about that, so let's say you have something, and let's say you have something over 3 pages that you want to submit, then if you take a picture of those 3 pages, at least I have a picture of it, and then maybe you can submit it to me by email as a last ditch effort to try to make sure that I can see everything in 3 separate images. It is if you can, because you may have to do this for other courses or maybe not, I don't know, but it's not a bad thing to learn that there are apps out there, free apps, which will do the conversion for you quite quickly. Cam scanner, I'll type that into the chat box, is an app that I used that does things pretty quickly. Okay, so that's a nice one. I take a picture with my phone and it just converts it to PDF. It strings any multiple files together, and I could send it to myself right away. So just make sure that that process is smooth for you. If you've had an attempt and you want to try it again, I can certainly go in and clear your attempt, and you can try it again. Okay, for this trial session. So are there any questions about that? Yes. So the question is, my concern is about the time required to scan and upload. Yes. So, so let me ask a poll question for those of you who've already tried it. And I'll ask this again the next day, so tomorrow. So for those of you who haven't tried it, please try doing that trial submission by tomorrow. Okay, so by our class tomorrow, try that and just see how long it takes. So I'm just going to ask a poll question. I'll mute myself for a second. Okay, so those of you who have tried it, you probably have a sense of how long it takes to take a, if you, just the file submission piece, like not working out the question, but just that whole process of taking an image or getting a PDF and then submitting it. So when I did it, it was about probably about between 3 to 5 minutes. If it's taking you more than 7 minutes, I'd wonder what it is that you're using. Okay, and maybe we can troubleshoot that and see what the process is you're using. Maybe there's a quicker app. Okay, so it looks like the majority falls, so I'll just share the results with you. So it looks like the majority is between 5 to 7 minutes and 3 to 5 minutes. Okay, so I think that sounds about right. If it's taking you longer, I'm wondering what it is that you're trying to do. And if it's too difficult to switch from a JPEG or like a picture format to PDF, then send me the picture format, right? If that's something that you're concerned about. But if you've tried it and it's taken you long because it was the first time you tried it, I can certainly reset the test, or I can do another one. I could do another trial, and you can try it again and see how that works for you. I just want to make sure everyone's on board with the technology so that there's no issues on Monday for this, okay? Or to minimize the number of issues. So yes, I'll take into account the fact that you have to upload that information. Okay, that'll be part of my planning. Okay. All right, are there any other questions about what to expect? Okay, so tests will be timed, and they will be and I'm timing them because I'm respecting the the schedule, because I know you all have other classes that you have to get to, and this online, you're going to be jumping from one class to another, so I have to respect that timing as well. So yeah, so Spencer's comment about most people are using computer to access the test, but then need to move a file from the phone to the computer. Yeah, I would expect, and that's what I did. So I did this with my phone. I took a picture with my phone, moved it over to my computer, and then uploaded it from there. And I'm not particularly so tech savvy, but that's a way I found that worked. And it took me between about 3 to 5 minutes. Okay, so I think between 3 to 7 minutes is a reasonable amount of time to be able to get that process done. So I'll build that into the test timing. Okay, I'm just going to switch gears, but I'm going to give everybody a break from my voice. I'll give myself a break from my voice, and I'll just do a little mid-session break. I'm going to pause it here, or just mute myself. I'll get the files. I'll go over assignment number 3. Everyone, I've emailed everybody in the class their assignment number 3 back. There were a couple of people that didn't have names on the test, or on the assignment rather. So I had to assign a 0. If you're one of them, please do reach out to me, okay? Because we'll do a verification of your assignment submission. Okay, so I'll just pause, or I'll put myself on mute for a few minutes. So let's reconvene at let's say 9:03. Okay, so right now I have a time of 8:40. So not 9:03, sorry. Let's come back at 8:53. I'll just pause myself, mute myself, or mute the the system. I'll upload some other files, and we'll come back to looking at assignment number 3 solutions. Time to take a look at assignment number 3 solutions, and then if there's any time left, we'll hit the example 5.3 in the topic 5 notes. So assignment number, so I just wanted to also mention that you have view controls. So at the very top, pardon me, at the very top of your screen, in Blackboard Collaborate, you should be able to see a button that says Show View Controls. So if you're having difficulty seeing what I'm presenting on the screen, you can go to the Show View Controls and zoom in as you need. Okay, and it's not going to, that's your own control, so it's not going to affect anyone else's view. And I can also zoom in, but when I zoom in, it's not going to affect your view. So if you're having difficulty seeing something, then you could simply use the view controls that are on the top left-hand side and adjust your view so that you can see. And there's also a scroll as well. Okay, so I can see that people are also using the raise hand, which I never really quite understood. It's if you can raise your hand. I can see that there may be a question, but it's best if you type in the question into the chat. If you don't feel comfortable typing it into the chat for everybody, then you can simply go to the attendees list and click close to my name. There's a button that says attendees control, and select me to, or select a chat with me directly. The raise hand, unless you are really wanting to say something to me or to the whole group, then I could allow your voice to come through if you have a question that's very difficult for you to type out or to express in writing, and it's easier for you to ask, because there are some situations that may be like that. Then please use the raise hand if that's the only way that you feel that you can get your question across. And then what we could do is, so you can raise your hand, and then I can allow you to have access to a mic, but we'll only have one person speaking at a time. Okay, so for now, everyone is on mute. You can only hear my voice. Okay, it really starts to slow down the system and reduce the quality of the whole session if I start to allow everyone's voice to come through, and video feed as well. The question about the test, so before I get to so I'll answer last couple of questions here about the test setup. So the question is, will we be able to do the test at any time throughout the day? So the intent here is to have classes exactly as they are face-to-face. So in a face-to-face session, I would have it from 8 to 9:45. And so that's the intent here, is to have it start at 8 a.m. and end at 9:45. If this is a major concern for you, then please email me. But I do also have to respect that there are other courses that are being delivered, and there's a schedule that everyone has to follow. So what I would like everyone to view this as, I know these are extraordinary times, and the circumstances are really quite peculiar and just very different than anyone has ever could imagine, I suppose. But if that's a significant issue for you, please do reach out to me by email. The intent is to hold the same class schedule as they would be face-to-face. Okay, so the tests are timed between 8 and this will be 8 to 9:45. And the other thing I'm trying to balance here is academic integrity. So at the end of the day, you are getting a credit for a course, and it's my responsibility to also encourage academic integrity. So again, if you have any major concerns about this, please do reach out. But yes, they are intended to be timed from 8 a.m. to 9:40. But I realize that we're in a very, very different situation, peculiar situation, and so do reach out to me if you have a major concern. Okay. Otherwise, 8 a.m. is the start time. And the other thing is, I also have another class that I have to get to. So I still have a schedule that I have to maintain, and I have another class that I need to get to as well. Okay. So We'll go over assignment number 3. The first 2 questions for the answers, the solutions for these questions are posted for you on Blackboard, and I posted it for the first version. Now you'll know that you have a different version because obviously the questions will be different. The only 2 questions would be the same, would be number 1 and 2. That's the same for everybody. Question number, I think these are pretty straightforward. Most people got it. For the number 2, it was talking, so number 1, sorry, I'll refer back to number 1. So number 1 is just getting your loads together. And so the information was on drawing S2, and you'd have to take a look at the total dead load and the live load and factor those up and then combine them. So most people got this right, or got this almost right. There's a couple of dead load components to add. There's superimposed dead load. There's also the topping for the 100 millimeter concrete topping, and then there's the self weight of the slab itself. So the 100 millimeter concrete topping doesn't do much, doesn't do anything. We don't rely on that for strength purposes, but we have to add it as a self weight, or as part, not self weight, sorry, as an added weight. So that topping is you can't just ignore that. So I think that's the most common mistake in that first one. In the second one, it was about the temperature steel. And the question is, show that the temperature steel requirement for the typical one-way slab system satisfies the requirements. So the requirements for temperature steel are 2 things. One is the area that has to be satisfied. That's AS-min. That's true for temperature steel. That's true for the design steel as well. So that's the design steel, the steel that's being designed for to take the tension, right, for flexure. Temperature steel is always perpendicular to the main reinforcement. So this 15M at 400 is perpendicular to the main reinforcement, which runs in the opposite, which runs in the direction of the slab. So this is going to be running perpendicular to the direction of the slab. And let's get my pointer right here. Yeah. So hopefully you can see my pointer. So you check AS-min, that's 0.002 AG, and you come up with a number of 500 millimeters squared per meter. So always in the slab, always you have a width of 1,000 millimeters that you're considering. And then 250 is the depth, okay, of the slab. So you would not include that 100 millimeter concrete topping. You would just use the slab depth, which is 250 millimeters. You also have to make sure that the spacing is less than or equal to either 5H or 500 millimeters. And that is true in both cases. And so when you're looking at AS-min, it's 500 millimeters squared. And if you calculate what the actual AS is, then you have to get AB, which is the area of the bar, times 1,000 divided by the spacing. So you would take the, so just show you where I am here. Hang on. My pencil. Okay, so it's allowing me to, there we go. So when we're finding AS, then we take the area of the bar, which is 200 square millimeters, times 1,000 divided by the spacing, which is 400. That information is already given. All we're doing is we're showing that it actually works. So 500 millimeters squared per meter is actually equal to, it's not greater than, but it's equal to AS-min. So that works, it's fine. And then the second question is to show that the crack control parameter is satisfied for the slab in the non-spanning direction, and provide a sketch of the slab and label any dimensions that you use in the calculations. And the reason this sketch is, pardon me, here is just to give you an idea or a sense of where things are laid out. So if we're looking at the bottom the bottom rebar, the very bottom, the lower layer rebar will be the rebar that's used for tension. Okay, so that's the design steel that is used for the purposes of flexure. The bars that are perpendicular to it, so these ones, pardon me. So these bars here, sorry. Pardon me. So the bars that are coming at you, right, the circles that you can see, going into and out of the page, those are the temperature steel. And those are more critical for crack control than the bars going in the opposite direction. And so when we're checking for crack control for a slab, we always look at the temperature steel, which is in the non-spanning direction, because that's always going to have the biggest possible spacing. Now, you may have flexural steel that has the same spacing, but it won't be any smaller. The temperature steel will be the maximum spacing it can be. So that's the most critical one. Are there any questions so far about this particular page of questions? C is, what is the typical what is the typical splice length of the temperature steel? So let me see if I have an image that I can bring up to show you where you can find that. Okay, I have right now what I have showing you is just the structural images. Let me bring up the other ones. So give me a second while I bring up those notes, because I think a lot of people missed this one. It was a really easy like once you see it, you'll see how easy it is to get that value of 600 millimeters. So I'm going to mute myself for a second and bring up those drawings. The reason I'm going through this, by the way, is because you're going to have a question on test number 2 that is going to look very much like assignment number 3. Okay, there's going to be something on there, or like this assignment number 3 is very relevant to test number 2. That's why I'm taking my time to go through it. So give me a minute while I get that file up. Okay, so right now I'm looking at the reinforcing detail drawings, and I am taking a look at, if you happen to have them with you, I'm taking a look at page, I'm at Okay, top reinforcement. I'll go to the bottom one. Let me go to the previous page. So bottom reinforcement, I'm looking at R06. Okay, so I'm just looking at page R06. And if I take a look, so these are the drawings that show the details of the reinforcement. So there's a ton of information about the rebars in these set of drawings. In the structural drawings, they will be more lean. They'll just give you the bare essentials like the size of the bar and the spacing. And some typical details, but they won't go into so much detail about the number of bars and the length of the bars and all that. So in this drawing, and I'll zoom into the spot where you can see. So here, these ones here going in the north-south direction. Let's see if we can see it. I'm not sure if you can see my cursor. You may not be able to see my cursor, but I'm zooming into a spot where it shows that the typical splice length. So a splice is like an overlap, where one bar overlaps another, and it doesn't have to be one on top of the other. It could be side to side. The typical splice length is, here we go, get that in the middle of the screen. And the typical splice length you can see right there, probably in the middle of the screen, is about 600 millimeters typical. Okay, so these are these bars that are running in the north-south direction where you see 600 millimeters typical, where that's the splice length. There is a, it says 41 15M by 9,000 at 400 BUL. So what that means is that there's 41 bars, so that's the count. The size or the bar nominal size is 15M, so that's the designation of the bar. The length of the bar is 9,000 millimeters, and they're spaced at 400 millimeters. And it's the bottom upper layer, that's BUL. So this basically describes the how many bars for temperature steel in this area here. So it shows you with this little dot and then the arrow that extends from those dots. So right where you see about the 4115M by 9,000, there's a dot right sort of in the middle there, and you can see extended from that dot the dimension line that shows the arrows, and from one end of the arrow to the other end of the arrow, those you have 41 15M bars that are spaced at 400 millimeters center to center, and the length of the bar, so in the north-south direction, the length of the bar is 9 meters or 9,000 millimeters. Now they can only have bar lengths of so long, right? They can't transport whatever length they want. They have a limit that is based on the what they're allowed to transport in the actual truck from one place to another. So so they have to splice it. Right. And even for handling purposes, you can't have something that's super long because then the bar starts to bend under its own self weight. So you have to have something that can be handled and transported properly. And so then they splice the bars together, and that's where this overlap of 600 millimeters typical exists. Okay. So that's that. All right. Just wanted to do a little pause here and check to see if there are any questions about number 1 and number 2. So the question that I was addressing there was 2C. So that's when I asked you to refer to the R06 drawings to determine the typical splice length of the temperature steel. So you would have had to understand that the temperature steel is perpendicular to the main reinforcement. You'll have to understand that the main reinforcement goes in the same direction as the direction of the slab, or the span of the slab, and that the temperature steel is perpendicular to that. Okay, so with that, you can figure out where the splice length, or what the splice length is. So that was the question. Number 2, I quite like this question. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. So this question is asking you to look at a specific spot in the slab and determine what the moment resistance is. Now we can't in this. So I studied the slab layout, and it is one way. It's a one-way system, and but what is tricky about this slab system is that there's a part of the slab where one slab span is quite different than the one that's adjacent to it. And in our course, we've used what's called the approximate frame analysis, and we use the approximate frame analysis to get moment coefficients, and then from the moment coefficients, we get the factored moments, etc. We figured out in a design approach how to design a slab. So in this particular case, because we're given the drawings and we know what the design is, it's already there. What I was wanting to do was actually give you a design exercise and see if you can come up with the same design criteria, or a same reinforcement design. But because of the way the slab spans are, there are certain areas where the approximate frame analysis does not apply. So you can only have a difference of 20% between adjacent spans. Otherwise, the approximate frame analysis will basically not be as accurate in representing the moment distributions. So the only thing you were able to do with this set of drawings is take the information and figure out what is the moment resistance. Okay, so I think the biggest problem in this particular question was that some students were approaching this as a design problem rather than as an analysis problem. So a design means that you are looking at the loads, you're looking at figuring out how much steel you need, or it's not the number of bars, by the way, for a slab, it's the spacing of bars, and working it out that way. So this is the opposite. You know how much steel is there. It's given to you in the drawings. You take that information down, and then you can figure out what your resistance is from there. So in this version, so there were about like 7 versions out there. So you each had a different spot to look at in the drawings. So I will take, this is version 1. And so, but the process is the same for every single for every version. You're just looking at a different number set, and you're looking at either top bars or bottom bars. So here we have, you're asked to refer to drawing S2 and review the information for the continuous slab between grid lines R2 and V1, and between grid lines 5.5 and 4. So I'm trying to direct you to a specific spot. And in this particular case, I was looking at the reinforcement at grid line U1. And so I'll just pop that up. So your question that you had specifically for you may be a little different, because you may be looking at a different spot in the drawing. But let me see if I can bring up that for a second. So we're looking at U1 between grid lines 5.5 and 4. Okay, so this is the structural set of drawings. So I'm looking at S2, so that's the page S2, and I would look at line U1, so somewhere around, so here, and I would go somewhere between 5.4 and, so I'm looking at this area. So when I'm looking at this in plan view, I can see that the slab is spanning east to west, right? And the slab is supported by beams that are running in the north-south direction. And so I can see here just around where I put that mark. So I can see here CB7. That is a beam that is supporting the slab. So that gives you the dimensions of the beam. So it's 800 millimeters by 700 millimeter deep. So it's an 800 millimeter wide beam, and it's 700 millimeters deep. And that supports the slab at that location. So here we have a continuous one-way slab system. And at this particular location, it is over the support. And so the bars are going to be at the top. And it tells you right there. So if you zoom in, if you're having difficulty seeing this, you can zoom in with your view controls. But there is a, it says right here, oopsie, let me get that. It shows, I seem to be having trouble. There we go. There we go. Right in here, it is that gives you the information of the slab reinforcement. So right in here, it says 20 M at 325 and then T. So 20 M, that's the size of the bar, that's 20 M bars. At 325, that is 325 millimeters is the spacing, and then T for top. That means it's at the top. If it's at the top, that should indicate to you that the tension is at the top of the slab. And if the tension is at the top of the slab, that should also indicate to you that there's a hogging bend. Okay, so if you had anything over a support similar to this, then you would have a hogging bend, and your bending moment would be negative. If you are in between the supports, so if you were given something like, say, for example, here, 15M at 400 B, then that's 15M at 400, 15M bars spaced at 400 millimeters, center to center at the bottom. That tells you that that is a positive bending because that's where the tension is. It's at the bottom. So you can see if you go across the whole page, you can see that there's a mix of the bottom, top, etc. And it also shows you the span, the direction of the span. So in this arrow that you see, shows you the direction of the span of the slab and also the direction of the rebar. So the rebar for tension reinforcement is going in the east-west direction. So it's running in the east-west direction, and it's a mix of bottom and top, depending on where it is, if it's between the supports or over the supports. So I would encourage you strongly, okay, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, to review this this layout and understand what it means to have top bars and bottom bars. And if you're given the bar size and the spacing of the bar, you can determine the moment resistance. And that was part of the question. So I'll go back to the assignment number 3 solutions. And okay, so so Erin, I'll get to your question in a second, but so I'll get through this solution. So here I have 20 M at 325 bars are at the top. It's negative bending. I know that it's negative bending because the tension is at the top, right? And in these, sorry, let me go back to these drawings. The S2, this set of drawings, the structural drawings, shows only the information for the design steel, meaning only the information for the steel that is designed for flexure, for tension. Like this is the steel that's going to help the concrete be able to handle any tension in the slab. The temperature steel details are not included in this plan view. They are there's a mention of the temperature steel in the notes, but they are not seen. The details of the temperature steel is not given in this image. Okay, the reinforcing detail drawings gives you a lot more information about the detail of the bars. All right, I'll go back to this question. So you have the bar size, the spacing. The first question is it positive or negative bending? Justify your answer. We've had some experience in class about design, whether bars should go at the top or at the bottom and the reasons for it. And then part B is to determine the moment resistance for a 1 meter width of the continuous slab from along that line. So looking at that top reinforcement of 20 M at 325, what is the moment resistance? So you know how much steel is in there. Determine AS, okay, by using this formula, AB times 1,000 divided by S. Now, some people used the number of bars. You cannot use number of bars for a slab. It's always going to be based on spacing. So AS, the area of steel, is AB, which is 300 in this case because I'm using 20 M bars, times 1,000 divided by 325. 325 is the spacing. So you get 923 millimeters squared per meter. There were a number of students who used instead a number of bars, like 4 bars or 3 bars. You don't convert this into a number of bars because in a slab, you're only looking at a 1 meter width, and it's possible in that 1 meter width to catch a fraction of a bar. It's very different than when you're looking at a beam. In a beam, you have a set number of bars. In a column, you have a set number of bars. But in a slab, because you're taking a 1 meter width, it's possible to capture a fraction of a bar within that 1 meter. So you determine AS, you get rho. You have to figure out a D value. So D is the depth from the extreme compression fiber to the centroid of the tension rebar. And the slab depth is 250 millimeters, which you can get from the typical drawing details on page 1 or that very first page of the notes. I use 20 millimeters here as the cover. And the reason I use 20 millimeters here as a cover for the top reinforcement is because it's not exposed. And if you had a question for bottom reinforcement, there was a note in the S2 drawings that says for bottom reinforcement, the clear cover is 25 millimeters. So just be careful with that. So in your solutions, if you're looking at bottom bars, then your cover would be 25 millimeters. Pardon me. And so you get a D value, and then you can, from that, you can get rho and KR, MR, etc. So you're going to use table 2.1 to get a moment resistance. The next question is to confirm that AS min and the spacing requirements are met. Pardon me. And so that's checking the spacing and AS min. So AS min, again, you have the 0.002 AG. You're using 1,000 as the width and 250 as the height. Okay, so AG is the width of 1,000 times the height, which is 250 millimeters. It's not the D value. I think some people use D here instead of the total depth. The D value being 220 millimeters. The spacing has to be less than 3H or 500, and it's okay. And the lengths, so the last part of the question is refer to the appropriate R drawings and determine the length and position of the bars. So if we pop in to the reinforcing details, now this one is top reinforcing, so I need to go to the R6, no, sorry, R7, is it R7? Let me see. So looking at, for top rebar, I would be looking at R7. So I'm just going to pop into that. So I'll stop sharing this and I'll pop into the drawing set. I know there are some questions about whether or not you need the drawing set. You need them for the assignment for sure. Okay, so please have your drawing sets available. If that's a major problem for you, please email me. Okay, so if you don't have, for some reason they're left maybe in a locker at school and you don't have it, there shouldn't be any reason for you to go back to the college. Just if you're stuck and you don't have them, let me know, okay? But hopefully most of you have your drawings with you. If you don't have them, let me know well in advance so I can organize it for you, okay? In a test situation, I would give you, I would build a piece of the drawing into the question. Okay, so that I can really direct you. But in the assignment, I'm hoping that you have your files, your drawings with you. So again, if you don't have your drawings with you, they're stuck at school, please don't go out there and get them. Like just email me and we'll figure it out. Is it safe to assume that we're not returning the drawings? I'm hoping that that we will eventually see each other again. Please hang on to them. Don't let them grow legs and walk off to some other places. These are used for educational purposes only. It's been made very clear to me that they have to be used for only educational purposes. I would like them returned, and if you could do that, that's great. Okay. Obviously not now, but when the college reopens and when this whole peculiar situation is over, then if you can remember to bring them to me, I would really appreciate it. But I know that's not on everyone's top priority list. It's certainly not on my top priority list for the next few weeks anyway. So let's just get through the semester. Hang on to them. If you happen to remember, please give them to me. That would be lovely. If you don't, then shred them. Okay. All right. So let's see. What was I going to do? I was going to show you, pop into the, so I promise the next session will be a little smoother. I think because I think we've sorted a lot of the technical issues for this one. Okay, so let me see here. If I take a look at U1, so right now I'm staring at the drawings that give me more of the reinforcing detail. So I'm looking at line U1 and let's take a look. If I zoom in right here. So this gives me more detail. So I'm zooming in. If you look at the center of your screen, I'm looking at more of the detail about that top reinforcement. So it says here there's 45 bars, 20 M by 4,800 at 325 2UL. That's top upper layer. Okay, so there are 45 bars, that's the count, 20 M is the size, at 325, that's the spacing center to center. The length of the bar is 4,800 millimeters. It goes in the east-west direction. And you can see a line right under that. It says 44 20 M bars at 3,200 alternate. Okay, so what that means is that they're just alternating the bar lengths from 4,800 to 3,200, and so if you wrote down both numbers, that's great. If you gave me at least one of them, I was happy. And it's TUL, which is top upper layer. Okay. So are there any questions about number 3? So again, I'm going to repeat myself. I like this question. It's a nice question to get you to look at drawings and make sense of what it is that you're looking at and tying it into the calculations you've seen in class. Okay, so this is a nice question. So you might see something similar on a test situation. Question number 4, I think was really just quite a giveaway. It's very very similar to a question that we did in class. So this is um, a a T-beam or a beam a beam design where we're taking into account the flange or that slab portion. And it just helps to make the design a little bit more efficient in terms of the resulting number of bars. But it requires a bit more of a couple extra steps in design calculations. So this was very much, pretty much step-by-step, something that we covered in class. And so as long as you followed those steps and you were able to understand the differences and plug in the right values where they were needed, hopefully this wasn't too difficult to do. So this one was very straightforward, very much like a question that we did in class. And I guess my biggest comment for this one, it was pretty much well done. A couple of people thought this was like the span of the beam was 2.5 meters. That's not the span. What's shown here is the in this area here. That's the spacing between the beams. So this view is basically a cross-section view of two beams that are spaced at 2.5 meters apart, center to center. And the span of it is, depending on your question, you may have different numbers because this varied for all the versions, 6.1 meters into and out of the page. Okay, so the span is going in the opposite direction, 6.1 meters, and you're given a certain factor of load. Okay, you did have to check so some people missed this check. We are treating it as a rectangular behavior, but you do have to still check that it is indeed a rectangular behavior by showing that A is less than or equal to HF. And so that check had to be in there. Check that the bar spacing meets the requirements. So some people treated this as a slab, but this is not a slab. This is the bar spacing would have to you'd use the same criteria as for beams and list all other checks apart from what is completed in B. So things like crack control, you just had to list it. You didn't have to actually do it. But crack control, AS is greater than AS min, and what's the other part? Skin reinforcement. Okay, so I think this one was pretty straightforward. And the solutions to this version is posted on Blackboard. So your version, your numbers may be a bit different. Your values where you're looking at in the drawings may be a bit different. If you have specific questions about what you were looking at, please do feel free to email me and I'll try to sort that out for you. But that's pretty much it. Are there any other burning questions about the addendum, what to expect for scheduling, anything like that? So we'll start with, we'll follow the addendum that I posted. If there are going to be any changes, should the college make any additional changes to what we need to do, I will keep you informed and I'll update as we go along. Okay. So if you have accommodations, and please reach out to me just to make sure that we're on the same page, and you want to take a look at your schedule from all your courses and the completion plan for all your courses. Okay, so I gave you the schedule. Treat these classes just like face-to-face. This is very different for me. It's very different for you. I can't see your faces, so it's hard for me to see if you have questions. So please do reach out through the chat, etc. Yeah, so the question that came up was about recording sessions. So I am recording this one right now. Obviously, they're not polished, right? So if there's, you'll see the recording of my mistakes and what, bringing up the wrong file and things like that. So they're not polished recordings. In SDS 443, if you had Steel with me last semester, they were really polished. They were edited. They were produced. They had closed captioning, all of that, right? These sessions are delivered live. They're going to be recorded. I will try to make them available to you, but my fear is that the system is going to be so overloaded that we may not be able to get those downloads quickly. So just note that there's going to be a time lag between the recording and when I'm able to actually get them. There's, I think right now, about a 48-hour time lag. Okay, so you won't be able to see this session until 2 days from now at the very earliest. So I'm hoping, I'm recording this, I'm testing it out. I'll record the one tomorrow as well, but please do attend as much as possible. I know this is a difficult situation for everybody. We'll try to maintain the schedule as much as possible. So our class schedule runs the same way as if we were to have face-to-face. This is the timing. So having said that, it is coming close to when I have to go to my next session. I just don't have to run to another building or another classroom. So I hope everyone is keeping well. If you think of something or, come up with your questions, have a list of questions ready for me tomorrow. We'll see if there's anything we can go through again tomorrow. Okay, so I'm going to sign off. I'll just double check if there are any other questions. I'll mute myself and or in a bit. Hang on. So the question is, can you please post the questions of A3 that you just showed? So you all have different questions. Yeah, you do all have different questions, but the solution process is exactly the same. So you would just follow the same solution process. So where you see a span that is 6.1, perhaps you have a span of 7, you would just switch that out. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone, for your attendance, and we'll get through the semester successfully. Okay, so take care and stay healthy, stay safe, and we'll see you tomorrow. Okay.